start. One moment.
Sorry, do we turn our cameras off?
Well, you go back if you
Yes.
want. It's up to you.
We're live now. Thank you.
I don't think it's quite as important for the members, and if there's only 4 of them, so don't worry about that. It's more of an issue in full council when we've got 50 members.
Yes, yeah, we remember that.
5 of you. Don't worry about switching your cameras on and off, but the officers will.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we're live.
Hi, well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for attending the Performance Scrutiny Committee meeting, Place and Corporate, 18th of January. It's now 4 p.m. and we're going to be looking at this year's budget proposals. As we know, this scrutiny meeting is being conducted remotely in accordance with the coronavirus regulations and the remote meetings protocol agreed by council, which will operate alongside the council's standing orders to ensure that we continue to take democratic decisions in an open and transparent manner. I would remind members that this meeting is being live streamed to the public. Can I request that you switch off your cameras and mute your microphones when you are not speaking to ensure no unnecessary background noise and to help with the audio and visual quality of the broadcast. The council's standing orders and code of conduct will apply at all times during this virtual meeting in the same way as ordinary meetings, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. Can I also remind members to ensure their chat function is switched on and use that facility to indicate when they wish to speak on a particular item. Please do not speak until I invite you to do so, and remember to unmute your microphone and switch your camera on when you're speaking. For the benefit of everyone watching on the live stream, when I invite members to cast their votes on any particular item, they will do so electronically using the voting facility in the chat function. The votes will be automatically counted and are recorded on the system, but individual votes are not identified on the screen, and the chat room poll is not available on the live stream for public viewing. However, I will announce the numbers of the votes cast for any abstentions before I declare the results. As we are being broadcast live, a recorded version of this remote meeting will be uploaded onto the council website for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request. The images and sound recordings may also be used for training purposes within the council. Right, that's basically it. Do we have any apologies for absence, Neil?
Just Councillor Ken Critchley, please, Chair.
Okay, and any declarations of interest? No.
Sorry, Chair, can I interrupt and say that Councillor Hyatt is having problems trying to join the meeting, just to let you know. Okay,
thank you. We'll get to that obviously presently. So no declarations of interest, and I'm sure Councillor Hyatt will join us if he's able to. I'm going to go over the minutes of the last meeting for reference. Any matters arising we'll deal with at the end of the meeting, as has become custom, so that we can get on with the main gist of the meeting. So we're checking for accuracy. Page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Sorry if I'm going a bit quick. Page 16, page 17, 18, 19, and 20 is left blank on purpose. We now move to the 4th item on the agenda, which appears in the papers, I believe, starting on page 21. We're looking at the budget and medium-term financial plan. And We have various invitees. If it's acceptable, Myron, we're going to begin with you. Myron Rushworth, who's the head of finance. Myron, you're more than used to doing these things. But if it's acceptable to you, what we'll do is we've all read the comprehensive documents that you provided. Give you a few minutes to give us an overview, to amplify any points that you think relevant, and then we'll open it up to questioning.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Myron.
Okay, so I don't think this will take too long. So, Chair, this is the normal annual consultation on the draft budget. Responses via the minutes from this committee will go to the February Cabinet and will form part of the feedback that cabinets receive on their draft budget consultations. This year, the timetable was slightly slower to start than it was previously, and that's because of the late grant notification to councils from the Welsh Government, and that in itself was because of the UK budgets being delayed itself. And because of the uncertainty, it was decided that we would the cabinet would make the decision on the draft budget in that first week of January, whereas normally we would be doing it in December. But what we've done is that we've looked at the timetable for the budget that follows to ensure that we maximised the time available for consultation, in particular, obviously, the public consultation. So, and that's worked out reasonably well. So there's about 4.5 weeks worth of consultation there. We've followed a similar process in most years, Chair. So back in February last year, at the point that the council agreed the council tax and the overall budget, the budget challenge, the gap that we had for this next year coming, was about 4.1 million. As always, over the summer, we then update, revisit, challenge, discuss that position as officers, and we did that this year as well. So February was 4.9 million. The position in September that we got to was the 4.1 million. Officers then worked on the budget gap at that time, worked with cabinet, and proposals were put through for plugging that gap. We didn't quite achieve it all, but we were pretty close to sort of nil. We had about £500,000 left at the point that the draft settlement was received. When we got the draft settlement, it was significantly better than anticipated, for two reasons. One is we were forecasting on a 1% general increase in the settlement. The average across Wales was 3.8. That in itself represents roughly sort of £5.5 million additional funding. Also, significantly this year for Newport, we knew that the Welsh Government were changing or correcting some of the data that they were using on population for the settlements, and that's one of the biggest influences on any council's share of the overall pot. And we knew that Newport's population figures that they were using was low. They were going to be corrected. The advice to the Welsh Government from the group that kind of looks at this was to phase that in over a 3-year period, or if it wasn't phased, then to use floors and ceilings, so that essentially it would be phased in via that mechanism. As it happens, None of that actually happened. The full impact of the population correction was done in this single year, and that was also a significant factor in the increased settlement as well. After the settlement, the council was £9 million better than was anticipated. So officers and the cabinet worked on that position through December or the latter half of December, and the work or the point that we got to is where the draft budget sits now, and that's what you're looking at now. There's still further flexibility that the cabinet have got still before they make their final decisions in their February meeting, and that will then be used as needed for following the consultation. Chair, that's kind of we're following the same process as we've done now over the last 2 or 3 years. There's a number of budget proposals. Some have little or minimal impact on service provision, and therefore officers are actually implementing those under delegated authority. There's a link to those in the report, so they are available for review and comment if the committee needs to. But we are formally consulting on those proposals which are deemed to be to have an impact on service. So the proposals here in front of you are those. There's a significant amount of investment going into the budget, and feedback is also sought on those as well. If the committee wants to do that, plus on the fees and charges that were also agreed in that draft budget as well. Chair, that's it from me. Obviously, heads of service are here with their colleagues, and a number of finance staff are here as well to sort of talk you through the kind of the more detailed proposals that you've got. Just one thing from you, Chair. I mean, obviously, if there are any questions about the overall budget, happy to sort of take those myself with finance colleagues. I do need to leave this meeting to go to another one soon, but my deputy and Amy Gowd-Pask is here as well. If there's any general questions at the end as well, they can deal with those. Thank you.
Cheers, Marion. I think all members would want me to say to everybody this present that I think over the last few months, year even, we all value the work that all officers have done, and thank you for what you've done over the last year. And I think we've all realised the value that our public services bring to us. That said, we're here to scrutinise, obviously, the budget proposals, and Mark has indicated that he would like to ask a question. Mark, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Through the Chair, Marion, if I can just refer you to page 34 of the agenda, which is
what's
our financial challenge, paragraph 1.5.
Oh yeah.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
In the second part of that, you say, despite Newport being one of the better off councils last year and this year in terms of funding allocation, this uncertainty, coupled with increasing demand and therefore costs, in particular within social care schools, means that prior to the acceptance of the proposed savings, further savings must still be found, at least 9 million by 24-25, based on current planning assumptions and projections. I sort of followed what you said about the 3.8% equating to 5 million, and then that the council was 9 million better off. But just to clarify, because I sort of just don't want to get my wires crossed about this, the a need by any stretch of the imagination to look for further savings, has it?
Well done.
Sorry, Councillor Wickers, I missed the end of that one.
Yeah.
Mark, do you want to restate your point?
Yeah, that you said that the council was 9 million better off.
Yeah.
Than anticipated. And that's where we are now. But you've also said in here that given all of these challenges, at least another 9 million has to be found by 24-25 based on current planning assumptions and projections.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is that 9 million hasn't it hasn't obviated the necessity to find further savings, has it? We're still sort of we're still in a challenging position. Is that correct? That's what I wanted to. That's what I'm not clear about from what you've said.
Thank you, because yes, we are in the sense of clearly the cabinet will decide what it wants to do with the additional settlements that we've received this year. That will all go into the 21-22 budget, and then it's in the base budget then to go forward. What that means, though, is that it doesn't mean that future years we're going to be in the same place there. So obviously we've got a number of future budget pressures and budget investments that are required that we need to consider in the budget, and we've made some assumptions about what the settlements etc. is going to be in those years. Now, based on those current assumptions, and I do think that we need to consider those assumptions again now before we get to the February cabinet or certainly council in March. But based on that kind of continuation of a 1% increase in RSG each year, 4% on council tax each year, and the pressures that have already been identified in those future years, we've still got that £9 million gap in future years. Yes, the figure's the same, but that's purely coincidental. It's not the same thing. Now, as I said, we will need to consider if that 1% increase in RSG, which is a key consideration, is something that we just need to just adjust upwards a bit, and I think that will probably help in matters. But yes, we do have a challenge in going forward still because of that reason.
Yeah, if I can just come back a second there, Chair. Yeah, I understand that the second 9 million is, it could be 8 million, it could be 10 million or whatever. But I just wanted to sort of understand the context of it, because I wasn't quite that clear. Maybe just me, but I found that very helpful, your explanation there.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, sure. So
as well.
Yeah. So now I don't know if Amy's is in the meeting. Amy can maybe confirm if this is correct or not. But within the papers for the draft cabinet, we included the medium-term financial plan, and that £9 million is the budget gap in that MTFP in future years. And the assumptions in the MTFP in those future years is what I've explained around the RSG plus 1% each year, council tax 4% each year. These are planning assumptions, of course. They're not decisions at this point because they're in the future. And the budget pressures that are identified in the MTFP, again, in those future years, leads to that gap. So it should be all in there. If I could maybe ask my colleague Amy Gold-Pask to confirm if that's correct. I hope it was. Okay.
That is correct, Marion. Yeah.
Good. Mark, thank you for that. And Marion, thank you for the answers. Really good line of questioning there, Mark. Charles.
Yeah.
Thank you,
thank you, Chris. Marion, just reading through it, I mean, if I was more astute with the laptop, I'd be able to revert from it, but just things I've jotted down on my little reporter's pad.
Right.
Where are we? 1.5, probably right at the start of the report, if I'm reading it right, it says that core spending is still below the 2008/9 levels. Does that mean that we haven't really recovered from the 2008 crash?
So could I ask my question is either in real terms or even in cash terms? I think it's in real terms. We still haven't caught up. Yes, which is what you're saying. Amy, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. Compared to where we were in 2008/9.
Is that in real terms, Amy? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So if we took our grants funding back then, rate of inflation, all the way up to where we are today, that would be our expected grant settlements today. We still haven't reached that level yet. So I think your assumption.
Could I ask something else in addition, please, Chair?
Yeah, Charles. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Going on to page, I'd agree with that. I don't think the country's recovered from 2008. God knows where we're going to end up with what's predicted for COVID. I mean, I just see doom and gloom, I'm sorry to say. There's points raised in the report about, I think it's 3.16, which seem to allude that there's a hope of not allowing individual school reserves build up, which of course is a policy we usually sort of follow, isn't it? But yet on page 48, it then goes on to state that the decline in school reserves is something of a concern. So, I mean, we seem to be sort of playing it both ways within a few pages.
Councillor, I certainly wouldn't want to give that impression. Where we are with schools is that we've seen the level of school reserves reduce quickly, fairly significantly over the last 3 years or so. We've got 4 or 5, mainly our secondary schools, that individually have got very large deficits. In total, we are still on the positive side in terms of school reserves, albeit with, as I said, 4 or 5 mainly secondary schools with some big deficits. But actually this year we had very little reserves left, in sort of total in schools. Now, because of the COVID situation, it looks like schools are going to probably underspend this year because they've not been physically opened for quite a while, for quite a number of weeks, months in this year. But the level of school reserves is still low. We have most of our primary schools are overspending. Now they've got positive reserves and will still have positive reserves even after this year's overspending, but we've got those kind of 4 or 5 secondaries with big deficits reserves. So actually schools reserves is not, is an area which we're having to keep a very close eye on, doing a lot of work with individual schools, the ones that are in deficit, to ensure that they're bringing forward recovery plans. That work is kind of ongoing. So I would probably say that the situation with schools is that it's still quite challenging. The draft budget is planning to fund next year's schools cost increases in full. Obviously, as the report says, there's a question mark over what that cost increase is next year because of the pay rise, which is uncertain. But the intention is within what we've allowed for is to sort of is to confirm that as soon as we know. So that in itself should not create a financial pressure on schools in itself. However, we have a number of schools that needs to bring forward saving plans because they're currently overspending. So this will not be...
guys, thank you for that, Myron. I think we need to, that was a good question, Charles, but we need obviously to focus on our service areas. And unfortunately, let that run a little bit, but education schools, as I understand it, don't fall under our service areas, and I'm guessing, I know that will be taken up and by another committee. Maybe I wanted to leave it run, Charles, for you to get the question that, and sorry to have interrupted there, Marianne. So back to that then, Charles. In our service area, are there any further questions?
No, I think I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Any more questions from anyone?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on something.
Yeah, Mark, I saw your hand raised. I didn't know whether you. Yeah, good. No, but back to you, Mark. Good.
Well, paragraph 3.15, I just wanted, just on a factual basis, to make the point that it says that the draft budget makes provision for schools to receive investment of up to 4.9 million, which represents a 4.6 growth in schools budget. So how does that stand, sort of, considering the inflation issues and demographic pressures and COVID and all the rest of it? I mean, is that quite a significant increase or not?
Yes, it is. I mean, Chair, obviously we are going into.
Not really our service area, Mark, but if you could answer
no.
As concisely as possible. Sorry, Mark. Sorry.
No, I think he's already said yes, so that's fine. But the other point I just wanted to make is when we're talking about the level of the budget compared with years past, as you said at the start, we lost revenue from not increasing council tax a long time ago, really, because that created the problem over the SSA. But also there was a significant, because of austerity between 2010 and 2020, and I was cabinet member for financing part of that period. I mean, we actually lost about 20%, 25% of our budget, as far as I recall. And that really is the reason why we're behind, isn't it?
So, Chair, obviously I haven't got the figures on me, but yes, I mean, we've seen the settlements either reduce in cash terms or increase by not keeping up in kind of real terms. And that has been a problem. Also, of course, linked in with demand increases and budget increases required for demand as well, both from a growing city, new schools, for example, and also demand for social care in particular. So between the demand going up, our grants funding not increasing, not even in real terms, let alone enough to cover those demand increases, means that we've had to find savings to balance the overall budget. And council tax, is 25% of the council's funding. So it's significant, but it's what happens to that RSG, which is the main issue.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Marion.
Thanks, Mark. And thanks, Marion. Marion, you're still there? Yeah, I seem to have people popping up. Yeah, I got you. Are there any more questions? If so, on our service area, and particularly for Marion, given a finance overview, is there? Can somebody indicate in the chat if they would like to ask any more questions? No. The screen seems to be freezing or one thing or another, but we'll kind of move on. Okay, Marion, it would be amiss of me not to ask this, but forgive me if I frame the question. I've got a couple of questions. Given that everybody else has exhausted their line of questioning. So you've just said that obviously 24%, I think, of the council revenue comes from, for members of the general public, come through council tax, and a whopping 76% comes from the Welsh Government. We're proposing to raise, by your own equation, the council tax by 5%, which I think you said 1% equates to 580,000, so that will generate 2.9 million roughly. But with the enhanced settlement, we would still have a benefit if we didn't raise council tax of 4 million. from a financial perspective, not a political perspective, would you advocate that course of action, or would it be not economically prudent to do so?
I mean, you know, council tax will be a decision that the cabinet takes. There are many factors that come into the decision on council tax. From a purely financial perspective, this council has a lower council tax than nearly every other council across Wales. We are £8-9 million adrift in terms of funding by being lower than, say, the average in Wales. You know, every year that we are in that position is another year where, you know, this council can't do things that others can, or can do as much, and catching up is going to be a if that is what happens, it will take a long time, and therefore actually missing a year is problematic from that perspective. And once you've lost it forever, and therefore I would always say some kind of increase is always desirable from a purely financial viewpoint.
I accept that. I just felt it would be amiss of us not to cover, not to ask. And I tried to frame it as a follow-on from Mark, really. I tried to frame it in such a way as would take any political considerations out of it. Following on from that, on page 126, I think, it says work with partner agencies and third-party sector to provide advice and assistance to those with debts and financial problems. So obviously during COVID, people lived towards their means. There's a large section of our constituents, residents, neighbours that have perhaps taken a wage cut of up to 20% on furlough. So the question is your service area confident that this action will be completed by the end date, which is the 1st of March? And as regards some of the extra money potentially that we have, could some of that be used to engage with people that don't normally face financial worries due to a loss of income, and perhaps mitigate in some way?
Chair, sorry, you couldn't tell me which paragraph on the reports that you're...
So I scribbled down notes, so I'm cross-referencing iPad and so on. I think on my documents was on page 126. Work with partner agencies and third sector to provide advice and assistance to those with debts and financial problems.
Oh yes, so Chair, that's in relation to council tax arrears. So obviously anybody that gets in touch with us regarding their arrears, the revenues team always make sure that where appropriate that they get referred for any advice, you know, from places like the Citizens Advice Bureau, etc. And also we make them aware of the council tax reduction scheme. If that as well, so that they can check and make sure that they are, you know, where they are entitled, that they are able to then progress that as well, which is also helpful as well.
I think what I was saying is, I think that work needed to be completed by the 1st of March. However, there's going to be, for the next financial year, I would suggest increased demand in that area from people that don't normally face these problems with paying their council tax. People have been made redundant, taking a 20% wage cut, which will go into this year, and they're clawing back extra the problems with their finances. So I'm suggesting that when we're looking at future investment from this potential extra money we have from Welsh Government, that we may want to focus some of it there to help these people.
Thank you, Chair. I think if that's a recommendation from the committee, then please make sure that's on the minutes, etc. And that'll be fed back appropriately. But you are right. there will be issues, certainly around council tax, that is going to carry on for a long time, and we will need to ensure that there's a continuous focus on making sure that the residents are supported wherever possible and pointed in the right direction for any help and support.
Good, thank you. I think that's it then, Myron. You've got another meeting to go to, so thank you ever so much as ever for coming along. I believe your colleagues are going to stay in case there is anything at the end or anything interrelated. So thank you ever so much. Is Bev here, by the way? I think she was. I can't see her. I can't see her there. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Thank you ever so much, Marion. Very much appreciated.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, members, for the line of question as well. And we've got the big screen back now, so that's a good thing. Thank you, Anne, for looking after that. Right, we're on to city services now, I believe, or is it overall budget for place and directorate with Bev? Well, is it city services next, Neil?
Sorry, Chair. Yes, it's city services next.
City services next. Okay, so we've got city services next, and we've got Paul leading on this. Hiya, Paul. Good to see you again.
Chair.
Could we, if you want to follow the same format, please, Paul, give us an overview. I mean, amplify anything that you think needs to draw our attention towards, and we'll then open it up from questions for your service areas.
Okay, there's 4 savings in for consultation for my area, so I don't know if you want me to take one at a time or.
It's entirely up to you, Paul. Whichever way you want to present it. Okay. You know, you might even want to say that, you know, you don't think we're going to make that saving in this particular area or not, or we might need additional money or some such thing. But you're always direct and to the point and honest, so I'll leave it to you.
Okay, so I'll cover them off in the order then, and maybe I'll pause in between each one if you want to direct questions.
I think if you give us it all, and then we'll come back to the questioning. Yeah, because otherwise we'll get disjointed. And
yeah, okay, all right, no worries. So in my service area, there's 4 proposals up for consultation, as well as other ones Myrian mentioned that are delegated to direct implementation. So the ones that are delegated direct implementation are ones deemed not to have an impact on the public or more operational. So the 4 that we've got are around charging for some wastes at the HWRC, so HWRC or TIP as most people like to call it. Currently the council does not make any charges for materials. Under the waste regulations, we are allowed to charge for certain types of waste. This proposal proposes the introduction of a small charge for 2 items of waste, namely tyres and plasterboard. There's then sorry if I scroll through them. There's then some changes in the streetworks fees. So this is a larger than the normal increase in charge. So most of the charges go up a small % or an adjustment, and those are covered in the general fees and charges report that Myron referred to. This one is a specific significant increase. This is the charge that utility companies pay whenever they need to dig up the road. We've been reviewing this over the last 2 years, and this is about moving it in line with neighbouring authorities. So this is quite a significant increase in charge from £800 to £1,450, which generates around about 20 grand's worth of income. The third proposal is creation of an additional pay and display car park at Mill Parade. Now that's an existing car park, but one of the few remaining highways car parks that doesn't have a. Sorry, Chair.
Has that gone now, Paul? I think that's been taken off now, haven't it?
No, the pay and display in Mill Parade is still on.
That's still on, is it? Right. Yeah. Okay.
There was another proposal around parks, which I believe was removed at cabinet level.
Okay, that's good, because I wasn't clear on that one, so thank you. I thought they were all gone. Oh.
So this is a separate one, because obviously my service area covers a range of areas, so this one's come from the highway.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Well, thank you.
So this itself didn't originally envisage as a saving. It was done to help try and resolve issues that we're having at that car park, but it does generate an income and it needs consultation, so it's been moved into that. So the proposal is to regulate that car park as a charge pay and display in line with the fees charged at Maindy car park. And then the fourth one for consultation is a number of changes around the cemeteries. So these come into two categories. The first one is around public health funerals. So these are funerals that we have to we're legally required to undertake for people who are died and we're unable to trace their family. So this is when the local authority has to take responsibility. Previously that had been an outsourced service, so we had tendered that to a private contractor. This is an operational change so that we do that works ourselves, and there is some saving in budget, but it's more around operational efficiency than anything else. The others then is a package of slight changes to charges, many of which were picked up on audit. The charging process is quite complex at funerals. You see on the fees and charges, there's a long list of different charges. A few of them had not been updated over the years and had become uncoordinated. So this is around costs that we incur for things like when we carry out a test dig. So this would be if you have a historic deceased person and you want to add an additional person to that burial. If the council says that there's not space, then relatives can dispute that and carry out a test dig, but we've not been recouping the full cost of that. So this is around tweaking those. So there's a number of changes. They're relatively small income actually compared to the overall income we generate from the cemeteries, but they're listed here to consult on because they do impact the public. So those are my four big savings. I'm happy to take any questions.
Good, excellent, thank you, Paul. I can't see any. Perhaps it's me. I can't see any hands raised there. Are there? I think like one or two. Mark, good grief, thank you for that.
Sorry about that, Chair. Just in relation to the test dig issue, Paul, through the Chair. What happens if the council's records are wrong and somebody pays for the dig? And then they find out that, so they say there's 3 people in the grave and there's only 2. I'm saying this because sadly, actually, I probably got personal experience of this.
Yeah, so in those instances, the charge wouldn't be levied. Yeah. But this is around. Again, it's relatively small that these incidents happen, but often we get disputes, and where there's not a charge for it, it can encourage people for us to carry out quite a lot of work and disrupt it without it being there. But if it does prove that we are in the wrong, then yeah, that is a charge that's not levied. I think the thing to remember, as you say, in terms of records, is particularly St. Woolis is an exceptionally old cemetery with a large number of people buried there. So you know, these things do happen, but often we get challenged on it. So yeah, that charge wouldn't apply then, Councillor.
I mean, actually, Chair, you may not be aware of this, but in 2000 I think it was 2004 or 2005 when I chaired the it was the Scrutiny Committee for engineering and construction. I can't remember the title of it in those days, but anyway, I had to conduct a cemetery review, and it staggered me that at that point then there were 635,000 bodies buried in St. Woolis Cemetery, and there's the oldest public cemetery in the country apparently.
Fascinating. Yeah, there we are. Good. Is there anything else there, Mark? Thank you for sharing that. No.
No, thanks, Chair. That's fine.
Really interested. On that point, before I bring Charles in, you did spot my interest there. Another local authority, so it's just specifically on that point. I normally wait until the end for anything that I have. Are those charges directly from the council to the bereaved, or do they go to the funeral director?
It depends on the arrangement. So normally funerals are arranged through the funeral director as a go-between, or through people's insurance, but it can vary. So you know, the testing example would normally be an individual who requests that to be checked. Obviously they're checking in advance of their death, I suppose.
No, that's interesting, thank you. Sorry about that, I went off on the tangent there. Charles, your question.
60,000 bodies in the Altarine ward, and we can't get them out to vote. I don't know. There we are. Nothing to do with the cemetery.
600.
Yeah.
Yeah.
635,000.
It's quite a few, eh? Anyway, yes, I should have perhaps declared an interest, really, because I'm liaison councillor for the Transporter Bridge. But of course, that car park down at Mill Parade is used quite extensively by visitors to the Transporter. Charging them might be something of a turn-off. Maybe a little bit academic, because the Transporter isn't going to be running for the next couple of years while we have a refurbishment there. But can we stay mindful that that is the area where we advise people to park?
Yep. Do you want me to pick that up, Councillor? Yeah. It's in fact one of the things that we see as a positive in this, because one of the issues we've had with locally is actually people wanting to visit it, and we've had a number of issues with antisocial behaviour and people parking up vehicles and just leaving them there for weeks and months on end that we've had to then go and try and remove. So it's a very small car parking fee, £1, which, you know, I think it would, you know, if you're going to visit the Transporter Bridge as a great tourist attraction, I think £1 is okay to keep your spot being really close to the Transporter Bridge. But it should, you know, the real idea is to free up space so it can be used properly as a car park and not as a bit of a dumping ground, which sometimes it has been.
Okay. Would you consider maybe the first hour free?
It's
Paul, if Charles is suggesting that as something for us to put forward, then that's totally and utterly acceptable, Charles. So you to suggest that we put that forward, particularly given the slightly more favourable settlement. So, Paul, unless there's anything specifically you want to like counter with that, we can put that.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's just you know, obviously the saving is based on those assumed charges. So obviously it's for yourself to recommend alternative charges if you wish, or concessions, but that's what the saving is based on. So it would be different for different charges.
Yeah. If we ask the scrutiny team to make a note of that one, Charles, and we can discuss that at the end. Okay. That's great. Anybody else? There's no raised hands there. John, you've been kind of unusually quiet there. Do you have anything to ask? No. I'm sorry to bring you in, put you on the spot there.
Yeah, no, I'll wait until the end, as you suggested, because what Charles Ferris just proposed, I would be against. I'm in favour of the officer's recommendation as it stands. Okay,
thank you for that, John. I thought perhaps you might have something to say. I'm kind of buying a bit of time here. Does anybody else have anything?
Could I just come in, Chris, a minute?
Yeah, I've got. You haven't put your hand up, but that's why I was like sort of.
I don't think I can. I've tried. It don't work.
No, it doesn't matter. You're fine. Go on.
Okay.
Question?
Well, I was going to say I was trying to come in on some of the conversations that you've been having and inputs that you've been having, and obviously I'm not getting through. So I'm through now, but I would ask, please forgive me if you think I'm not taking part. I can't.
No, it's fine.
So technology is causing me a problem.
On Paul's service area, do you have any questions, Graham?
Well, no, I don't, because to be honest, as a Newport citizen looking in, I can't really fault him. No, I don't want you to get too big about this one now, but they're doing a great job. His total portfolio is doing a good job. And I think it's good to give praise where it's due, all right? Not to just keep digging and pushing and shoving to squeeze them to death so that they lose all faith in us. But so I'm saying, to be honest with you, well done, sir. I'm very proud.
Well, there we are. It's good to hear from you, Graham, as well. Mark, you had an additional question? Thank you, Graham.
I think the difficulty is, Chair, that we're dealing with part of the council's portfolio, obviously, and as you rightly say, it's our job to make constructively critical suggestions in that regard. But we can sort of propose that, for example, that a charge is reduced, like the Charles is suggesting, but we're not clear on the impact of that on the overall budget in terms of, for example, social services and.
Well, Mark, that's totally and utterly relevant.
Yeah, can you see my point?
Yeah.
That's the difficulty that we've got, and I agree with John that there may be other areas where if there is some headroom, other areas that is more appropriate to sort of look again at those areas. But I don't think we're in a position to do that. I'm respectfully saying
no,
that.
No, I do. We'll obviously pick it up at the end of the meeting and take some advice off our scrutiny there. Councillor Hyatt, you've got your hand raised there. But specifically for city services, and Paul, what's your question? No, we can't hear you at the moment.
People say, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yes, yeah.
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. Obviously,
you seem to be breaking up, Councillor Hyatt.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is that better?
A little bit, yes.
Obviously, we've been at home, and with the amount of lockdown that we've had and the rubbish we're accumulating, I'm noticing on the streets there's a lot more fly tipping going on and all the extra rubbish going on. Has that had an impact on our budget, please, for the waste services that we're running at the moment?
So I think, Councillor Hyatt, you're breaking up again, Councillor Hyatt, so I don't want to put words into your mouth. So I think he's asking quite a broad question there, not specifically on the budget, but with regards to the additional waste that he perceives that has been accumulated during lockdown, and whether that has caused any pressures on you that may need to be mitigated in the future financial year, Paul.
Yeah, I suppose take it back to this budget. We have had pressures because what's happened is people who produce waste in work, and the council charge for those collections, it's now generated at home, and we have to provide more resources to do those pickups, and of course we don't get the income. It hasn't put so much of a strain on refuse collections because a lot of the increase has been in recycling. If you think what you consume throughout the day, it's your cans of Coke and your drinks and an extra food waste in particular, and that has put a strain on the budget. The budget proposals that we've been asked to draw together, are made under the assumption that at some stage life will return to normal. But it is a risk, isn't it? It's and you're right to highlight, Councillor. If patterns of behaviour do stay the same, then there are pressures on services, and obviously domestic collections are currently requiring more resource. But our planning assumption and what we're planning on is things returning to normal. I think it'll take a year or more for us to understand how life comes back after this, won't it?
Okay, are you happy with that response, Councillor Hyatt?
Yes, lovely, thank you.
Good, thank you. So one more, thank you for that comment there, Mark, in the chat. Can we, are there any more questions from any of the members? No? Okay, I've got like 2 or 3 if that's okay, Paul. One of the things I said in the premium, this is just something sort of quite general. One of the perhaps costs you're looking at increasing are the cost for tyres. I don't know if I seem to be getting loads of complaints, and even around Rogerstone, seeing lots of tyres dumped. I'm not driving around Newport that much, obviously, because we're in lockdown. But anecdotally, I hear there's a problem, throughout the city. So I would suggest that perhaps some thinking needs to be done around there, and whether an increase in tyre cost for taking them to, an inverted commas, the dump. Might not be a wise thing to do. I'll leave that for you guys to consider. Okay. Yep. I know there's lots of other things on the peripheral of that, as regards people dumping tyres and so on. And another one, given some of the conversations we may have had with regards to flooding, page 67, service risks, extreme weather events. I mean, they seem to be, I think we can say not seem to be, happening more and more, and I think we're in for another storm now over the next couple of days. You know, I don't think my windows will take it, to be honest. But are the service areas confident, based on the budget allocation at the moment, that they will have the capacity and financial ability to deal with this increased risk? And whether perhaps some more funding might be needed there in a contingency budget. I mean, what's your thoughts on that, Paul?
Okay, shall I take tyres first? And then,
yeah. If you want to, you can just make a note of it if you want, you know. But I'm always interested to hear your view on things. So tyres first, if you would like, you know, and then extreme weather conditions, whether we're allowing enough in the budget to counter climate change, in effect, climate change.
So, you know, what I'd say with tyres is, you know, charges at the point of disposal, if they're not levied at the point of disposal, of course, everyone does still pay for them. They just pay for them at their council tax. It's one or the other, and it you know, intuitively seems a fairer charge for those who are producing more tyre waste to pay for it, rather than those who don't. I do understand the concerns around fly tipping. What I would say is, you know, all the evidence that we have, and we've done a lot this year, and there's you will have seen recently us taking 2 vehicles off the road, and there's another case that we've got ongoing, prosecuting another person. So we've really, you know, in terms of fly tipping prosecution and covert and overt surveillance, we've done a lot this year, which will feed through into next year. But we find that it's not people who go, oh, it's a bit inconvenient, go to the tip. It's by and large, and to a very high level, you know, people involved in other forms of crime, and people who do this deliberately. You know, white vans that, you know, you pay people, they don't have proper duty of cares, and they dispose of it. And so, you know, I am sympathetic. I do understand the concern around fly tipping, but equally, should we say that just because someone might commit a crime, we shouldn't charge for something? Because, you know, you follow the logic through and you say, well, everything you buy in a shop should be free, because otherwise you'll have a lot of theft. And so, you know, I don't necessarily.
Okay.
I don't necessarily, but, you know, we admit it's a concern to students. In terms of flooding, yeah, it's really challenging. Is there enough money? Yeah, in terms of what the council can do, I think the concern is that the expectations of what the council can do, or what we're even allowed to do by the public, can sometimes be greater than reality. So, you know, as you mentioned, climate change is a huge impact, and whilst we can maintain the systems that we have, and we can improve them and look for small improvements, you know, if we carry along our current projections and sea levels rise as much as they are, we can't build a massive wall around Newport and a 8-foot wide sewerage system. You know, the cost of that would be astronomical. I don't think we can head down that path. So I think, you know, we've got enough to maintain it, and I think they in the main do a good job. The point that the problem we have is often these events are point events. So you'll have one day where there's hundreds of flooding events. Now we can't keep a standing army for that. So we're always looking at ways we can improve it, but I don't think it's necessarily a budget issue as such. Okay,
thank you, Paul. I'll open it up once more, and there's no other questions from anyone. No. I think I did have a few more, but I think you've covered just about everything. So cheers, Paul. We'll finish there with you. Thank you for coming along. You can stay if you want, but I'm sure you've got other things to do. And thank you as ever. And yeah, hopefully the next couple of days with this predicted storm won't be too stressful for you.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay, right. I'm going flicking through my notes here now. We've got What have we got next?
It would be regeneration, investment and housing, please, Chair.
I know I got a bit lost there. I do apologise. Different bits and things open here. Yes, you are right, Neil. So regeneration and housing, and it's Reese we've got for this one, isn't it? Yeah.
No, Chair, it's me, Tracy Brooks.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tracy. I do apologise. I was looking at the, yeah, of course, yeah, Reese is there. So Tracy Brooks, right? Tracy, hiya. How are you?
Hi.
Do you want to give us an overview, first of all, and then we can open up to questioning?
Yes, thanks, Chair. So RH have put forward 4 savings proposals this year, 3 of which were delegated to Head of Service as operational issues. The one that's on your agenda for Cabinet is for the, well, it relates to the relocation of the information station to the Central Museum and Library building. Yeah. So members may recall that the decision to relocate the information station was taken by Cabinet previously, so that decision has been made, but this this consultation relates to the savings associated with that move. So we don't own the information station building, that's owned by a company called Archco with a connection to Network Rail, and we obviously pay a rental on that building for the ground floor and the first floor, which we occupy for the information station. So the proposal is that we move the information station to the Museum and Library building, and we obviously make a saving from the rental that we would have paid that company to rent those floors. We have obviously taken some of the saving to pay for the relocation works, but the balance of the saving, the 117,000 that's before you, is what we would put forward as a saving, because clearly we're not paying the balance of the rent.
Okay, that's it. That's good.
That's it.
Thank you. Any questions from the members? I can't. Mark, is your hand up there? No.
It's not at the moment, Chair. But just to clarify, this has been on the cards for some time, hasn't it, Tracy?
Yeah, yes, Chair, it has. As I say, Cabinet made the decision, I think it was back in 2019, to relocate the information station, and it's obviously all tied up with the idea that we use the ground and the first floor as an incubation type networking hub. So we're in the process of delivering that as a regeneration project.
Okay.
So can I just ask one further question, Chair?
Of course, yeah, go on.
So is there the possibility that space that's been vacated then may be used for some kind of either that purpose or some linked purpose? Do you think?
So the ground on the first floor, Chair, has already been, we're in the process of agreeing an operator in there. So we've had expressions of interest and confirmed sort of operator being Tramshed Tech, who operate the Tramshed Tech outlet in Cardiff. So we're working with them. We've obviously been speaking to them all throughout lockdown to understand their position and make sure that their requirements hasn't changed, and they are still as keen as mustard to get in there. So we're working along and working through the regeneration project management side of things now.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks, Chair.
Brilliant, thank you. Anybody else for anything else? Can I just ask, Tracy, you've got, if there isn't anybody, oh, sorry, was there an hand up there? Sorry, Councillor Hyatt.
Councillor Richards first, and Councillor Richards, you're on mute. Thank you.
Sorry, John, I didn't see your hand up there. I missed yours, Hyatt. Sorry, I was reading something. John, to you, and then to Councillor Hyatt.
Thank you, Chair. It's a broad question. Activity item code RIH9, and the references to Norse and I believe payments to them. Could I just have a brief explanation of those payments? There's one £5,000 and there's another £154,000.
Okay, can I just open that document up, because I'm looking at the council's website for that agenda.
Right.
Don't feel like don't need to feel any sort of terms of uncomfortable. If you're not able to, I'm sure John would accept a written answer sent to him if you can't find it.
Indeed, it's under centralised properties in the description, activity description, and there's two figures, two columns, two figures, one of £5,000 in 21-22 and one of 154,000. And I just wanted confirmation of the actual payments to North.
Chair, I'll need to come back to you on that when I look at the figures.
John, you okay with that? Yeah.
Yes, by all means. It's not a matter of life or death. It's
if you could just send us the scrutiny team a written response, and we'll forward that to all members, and of course John. Thank you. So Councillor Hyatt has a question. Over to you, Councillor Hyatt.
Thank you very much, Chair. I wanted to ask Tracy, please, with the savings that we're making every year, is that for the life of the lease that we have on the information station, and the savings that we will make, will it be put back into the central library to enhance its services?
Thank you, Chair. So yes, it's for the balance of the remaining term on the information station, which is about 7.5 years. So that's all the commitment is for us to occupy those premises. And obviously then it would be up to those occupiers, so the National Software Academy and maybe Tramshed, to negotiate terms with the building owner going forward. So we've got budgets and sort of things in order to operate the museum and library building offer in terms of the information station. So we've been lots of engagement over what is provided from there, and we've got the necessary budget to deliver those.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Anybody else, specifically for Tracy and her service area? No, I think you're done. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Come in for that one item. It's
my pleasure.
We can ask more broader questions as regards your action points, but I think you've covered just about everything there. So thank you, Tracy. Have a good evening. Thank you. You can stay if you want, but I'm sure you'd you want to get going. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right then. So I think. Well, we've just about covered everybody there now, Neil.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, everyone is covered now, all those service areas. Now, all we need to do is just to take comments to give to the Cabinet on those proposals.
Yeah, and I think we need to, so by comments, it's not, they're merely suggestions or things that we might want to amplify. And I also believe, Neil, that we need to look at so officers can leave if they choose to, and maybe they should do that. I think we need to look at our future work plan. Is that correct?
The next meeting that we got on the forward work programme is Monday the 1st of March.
Yeah, so
at the moment,
whilst we've looked, when we decide as to whether there's anything that we want to put forward as recommendations, we do need to look at our forward work plan, don't we?
Right, so at the moment, Chair, there is nothing on the forward work programme for the next meeting. And the meetings after that would be around the start of June, but those meetings will be confirmed at the next council meeting next week.
Cool.
But
so
yeah, for the next one, there's nothing currently on there.
Okay, so we will have a discussion around that after where we discuss any items that we may want to amplify. So first of all, over to you guys. Is there anything that you would like to amplify? I'm going to open up with you first of all, Charles. You had some suggestions on Mill Parade. I think one or two of our colleagues weren't so sure about that. Your comments, as I understand it, will appear in the minutes. But would you like to propose? I think your suggestion was that the car parking charge there was. I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth. I think this is what you said. That car parking charge is introduced, but the first hour is free.
to facilitate visitors to the
visitors to the
bridge, yeah.
And to the, it's academic at the moment, as you're saying, because whilst refurbishment is undertaken, it's that's going to take a couple of years. So are we okay to put that one forward? Or I think, John, you've got some feedback there?
Yes, Chair. I understand what Charles is suggesting or proposing, but my information is that this car park there's a lot of antisocial behaviour, serious antisocial behaviour taking place. In fact, gypsy travellers have commandeered it from time to time, and it's not so much an attempt to raise income, it's an attempt to make it inconvenient for those antisocial behaviour people. And I would ask Charles to consider that for the minute. I mean, we don't want that there when eventually our beloved transporter bridge is refurbished and all the countries coming out to visit it.
Yeah.
So
of course, John.
Antisocial behaviour problem.
Of course, John, and we know that you're not suggesting that antisocial behaviour is confined to one protected group. No. You're not saying that. You're just using an example of past problems that may have been there, as well as other forms of antisocial behaviour from other groups. I get that. Mark, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I think there's the other issue as well, that that if you levy a small charge, and these days, you know, £1 is not very much at all. That will deter people from taking up those spaces. And actually, when it does open as a visitor attraction, there may be considerable demand for those spaces in that car park. And the last thing you want is sort of people just dumping their cars there as a convenience to go, you know, to go into a shop or into the pub for half an hour. So that's the thing about it. So I think there are practical considerations, not just the one I mentioned before, against the suggestion, because actually it could increase the attractiveness of the car park to people who are coming in to go to the transporter bridge, if they're concerned, if it sort of, as John says, reduces the concern about antisocial behaviour.
Yeah, no, good point. A couple of other people have indicated, Charles, it's not that people are ganging up on you, it's just that people want to express an alternative view, I'm sure. I do think, just by clarification, I don't think there's many shops down there to go shopping, and the two pubs are closed at the moment, I believe. It was the north of England, is it, Adrian?
Yeah, that's it.
And I think the Waterloo is closed at the moment as well, just by way of, you know, but I get your point, Mark, you know. So we've got a raised hand here now from, I suppose, on that. So what we're looking at is whether we want to take any recommendations forward to recommend. Everything that we have said will appear in the meeting, in the minutes anyway. So Graham, you were next, and then Councillor Ayat will come on to you. So Graham.
Yeah, the transporter bridge, I'd like to have that put on the agenda for next time. It's an important issue because it's one of those places that Newport is renowned for internationally. We don't want it messed about with. It should be a very simple thing to boundary it in some way and have some form of non-monetary entry system, like a plastic disc, so that nobody could want to bust the box off. I'm saying it needs to be looked at. We must keep it open for the public to get to it, and it must be secure when they're not there.
Okay, good. I don't think we can look at it specifically in the next meeting in terms of how it falls under. But I'll take advice. We'll take advice on that when we come. But as regards the suggestion of suggesting to Cabinet that we have 1 hour free parking there, Are you opposed or for that, Graham?
No, I have. I don't wish to impose anything like 1 hour free parking, because I would love it to be a controlled car park with a plastic disc to get in, and it costs nothing.
Okay, good.
That's what I'd like.
But potentially, so you're advocating it being free of charge completely?
Correct.
Right, okay, thank you for that. From a local perspective, Adrian, and indeed from a council perspective, you're obviously, it's your ward, so there's potentially an interest to declare there, but what's your view of things?
Well, we've had a number of incidents.
Are you frozen again, I'm afraid? I'm sorry. Can everybody else hear me, or have I frozen?
No, I can hear you.
Yeah, but I can't hear Abraham.
No, I can't.
We would like Abraham, Councillor Hyatt's view on this, wouldn't we? As we do on everything, but because obviously he has some local insight. Abraham, we're going to keep you there, frozen, and we'll come back to you if needs be. McDad, good to see you. I understand you had a problem with your router. Accept your apologies.
Yeah, yeah, it's really to give my apologies first.
We missed you. We missed you.
Yeah.
No, I genuinely did.
Yeah, it's not the council problems or the IT problems. It's my own router.
Right,
it failed me, and it took me a while to get it back. And when I got it back, I couldn't join the meeting. So I apologize for missing the meeting, and I'm sure you would have covered the subjects adequately. I'm sure of that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's always good to have your input, and you always come up with some good points. So we did miss you.
I just have a sorry.
God, what we're discussing at the moment is anything. Of course, you only came in for the latter part of the meeting, so anything based on the meeting that we wanted recommendations to go forward to cabinet. Can I go back there whilst you're considering that? Can I go back to Councillor Hyatt, who I think is not frozen now, and get his it's like hosting a game show. Oh dear.
Thank
Right.
you, Chair. Hope you can hear me now. We've had a number of issues there, as you can imagine, Chair, with antisocial behaviour, drug dealing, people parking up in the night and staying there for long lengths of time, and caravans turning up, old dirty ones, just to be used as drug dens. So we've managed to sort it all out. But the issue that we've also got, as you know, a visitor centre there. We need to encourage people to come and use the visitor centre, look around, and I think it's going to deter people if there is a charge, because the visitor centres cost us a lot of money to set up and to get it up and running, and obviously we want to encourage people to come and use this place, but at the same time we need to discourage any antisocial behaviour, because it's a lovely little spot there with everything that we've got. So I think it's a delicate balancing act to make sure that we get the people in, but at the same time we have a safe and secure environment.
Okay, no, honestly, I think we all appreciate your hands-on local perspective there. So just to clarify, because perhaps it's me, I'm not clear. Are you, number one, opposed to charging per se? Number two.
I would like it to stay free of charge, but obviously to increase the security and the mechanism to gain entry to the car park and to leave, like Graham was saying, with some kind of a plastic situation where we can.
Okay. We thank you for that, and we take on board obviously your perspective, your view of things there. You're the feet on the ground then. I only ever see it when I drive past there. We don't really want to go to a vote, do we? But are we, I suppose we've got a couple of options. Number one, we say we amplify that we'd rather not have parking charges there. Number two, that we say that we understand parking charges there. I think that was John and Mark's view broadly. And number three, that we introduced 1 hour's free parking there. That was Charles' view. So I think Hyatt and Graham are for no parking. Mark and John are for the proposal. Charles, you're for 1 hour free.
Yeah, can I add something to that, Chairman?
Yeah, go on. Yeah. No.
Well, really, it's a tragedy that the Waterloo is closed. The historic pub. At one point, it did have the longest bar in Britain, so I understand. And in many ways, the development like the Waterloo is a kind of development for Pill that we would want for the town.
Yeah.
We really want to see. I understand. I think the landlady there is very, very unwell.
Yeah, I mean, you know, yeah. I know the Bob and Terry quite well. I don't think there's an interest to declare that they're just friends of mine, and you know, but yeah, I mean that's going by the by now.
So I mean, really, if we wanted to be kind to that area, because I see the fortunes of the Waterloo Hotel and the transporter and that little end down there, even including old Fanny's Pit Stop Calf. Yeah, they're all kind of.
I love Fanny's. Yeah,
a lovely lady Jo runs that, and a real supporter of the transporter bridge. But they are kind of linked to that little community down there. I could be bold and say, could we think of 2 hours free to let them have a full house breakfast, Fanny's, and maybe a proper lunch in the Waterloo?
I don't want to lead you in any way, but you might be better taking up Abraham's idea and Graham and not having any charging at all. But that's not my view personally. But if you want, because you're in a minority of one at the moment.
Nothing uncommon there, Chairman. I frequently am.
Yeah, tell me about it. So if you, I don't know. So do we want to suggest amplifying anything? Leave the notes as they are. I mean, it's going to be a bit of a tough one for me otherwise, isn't it? Go on. Mark indicated first, John. I'm not ignoring you, and then I'll come to you. Go on.
Yeah, I think with respect to Ibrahim and Graham, I mean, I appreciate what they're saying, but the problem is that idea hasn't been canvassed. Nobody's looked into it. We've got no information on whether it's viable or not. And that's the difficulty. We're turning up here. My respectful suggestion is that it's not really a good idea to make things to put things forward on the hoof when they, it would have. I mean that's nobody's fault, but I think it's something perhaps would perhaps be better to take away and explore at another time, because we are talking about years before they build before they actually finish the refurbishment and the new development down there associated with the transporter bridge. And we're looking at a present situation, and the only way presently we can deal with antisocial behaviour, or one of the ways that we can deal with it, is to levy the £1 charge immediately. I mean, that surely is a discussion for later. That's what I'm suggesting to my colleagues.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I get that. We are allowed to put. I mean, I'm just making forward as well. I might be able to suggest a compromise in a moment, but we'll because it has happened before. John, your view of things?
Yeah, I've listened to colleagues' opinions, and it's obvious that we've got several ideas and several suggestions.
Yeah,
it's not a matter of life and death, is this decision, and I would suggest we just ask for ongoing discussions on it.
Yeah.
Give the Cabinet an opportunity to review it, to discuss it. We can all get involved, and hopefully the outcome will satisfy everybody.
Yeah. Neil, Gareth perhaps as well. I think Marion does seem to recall we've done this in the past. Could we possibly lead with a paragraph that kind of says, in far better wording, members had a robust conversation and suggested some suggested no fees, some suggested 1 hour free, others were opposed to that. We would like the Cabinet to explore all of these options when they're making their decisions.
Yes, that's the problem, Chair. At the end of the day, you don't need a consensus.
No,
what we will record are the comments, even if there's a variation in opinion. Okay. So we'll feed those back to cabinet, and they can consider that in terms of the impact of the charges. Obviously, the concern in relation to some councillors is the impact in terms of visitors to the area, both in terms of the transporter bridge and other hostelries that people might frequent in the area. So we can pass those comments back to cabinet, and they can take that into account when they make their decision. That's fine.
There we are. So everybody's covered there now. Then, are you okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Mark, are you okay with that? Sure.
Yes, thanks, Chair.
Yeah, no, I want to make sure everybody's happy. We did a robust dialogue over that, didn't we? Right, okay, so is there anything else that, hopefully not, anything else that we think we should amplify? Anything like potentially on the council tax, McDad?
Chair, yeah, I mean, I did raise my hand just on the last.
I thought you raised your hand to give your
I mean, I appreciate I'm late on this, but yeah, I mean, what's required from here on the issue of the car park charges is what this scrutiny would recommend, really. I mean, they could go with sort of a consensus, or they could go with varied opinion, but the cabinet is going to look, unless sort of there is a consensus to go from it, they're going to settle for the status quo, aren't they? Which is really to put the charges, isn't it?
I don't know.
I would, personally, I mean, on this, I would be supportive of the position of the ward members. I mean, they know what we're talking about here. The thing is, I'm not convinced that if you put charges, you necessarily get rid of antisocial behaviour. I don't see the link necessarily in that, because you could have an empty car park, and that would be quite magnet for antisocial behaviour, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I think I think consolidately we take on board your view. We've agreed a form of words that we're going to put forward, but that's not to say that your view. Thank you for expressing it. Are we all comfortable with that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And McDad, you may choose to say.
No, I'm fine, but I would give some credence, maybe a little bit more, to the ward members on the issue.
I tried to frame that, and hopefully Councillor Hyatt will acknowledge that. But if I needed to do more, I take on board what you're saying there, McDad. Is there anything else that we might suggest that we amplify, or are we ready? Are we happy for the minutes to go as they are? Go on, John. You're on mute, I think, John.
You did ask, did we have any comments on any other subject? Are we finished with the transport, car park, Mill?
Yeah, sorry. So what I was asking now, so is there anything else so what we're doing now, the minutes will appear as they are. So the option is we just leave them as they are. We do have the opportunity to amplify, as I say, particular areas. So we've agreed a form of words as regards Mill Parade car park, right. Which takes on board everybody's view. So John, if there's anything else that you would like amplified, then we can consider that as well.
Okay, thank you, Chair. It's reference to the information station move to the Central Library and Museum.
Yeah.
I think that the information station has provided an excellent service to the public of Newport over the time it's been there. And I would be concerned that we maintain the range of services that we provide at the minute when we transfer. There's obviously an element of planning that you may not know about, but generally the public respond to that information station, and I would hate that any of the services we provide there at the moment are lost during the transfer.
Okay, that's I would echo that. Are we all happy with that? I genuinely, John, that's a really good, really good point.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
So can we make that happen, Neil, Gareth?
Yep, that's written down now, Chair.
Okay. Anything else?
Chair, can I ask, with the household waste recycling centre, if they're going to start introducing charges, is there a contingency plan to obviously take into effect that, you know, fly tipping may increase throughout the city and thereby burden the budget even further?
Are we happy to take that one forward and as a
I can only give you my observations of the city that I walk around and drive around, okay? And it's a bloody tip in certain places, quiet places like underneath George Street Bridge, etc. As an example, it's just one hell of a mess. Okay. So it's a mess now. We've got to do something about looking after that, areas like that, and get the trash to go to where it should go. So if we charge, we charge. If we don't, we don't. But if we don't do anything at all, we'll get the wrath of the city on us, won't we?
Okay, so taking on board sort of Councillor Hyatt's point, we didn't discuss this in the meeting in the broadest sense, though. I mean, we did raise, I think, about tyres and so on. But might we want to suggest that some extra investment is put into the Pride of Newport team, for example?
Is that the route to a fix?
Well, I don't know. I'm opening it up to debate. Potentially it could be, although we didn't discuss this in the meeting, but I'm sure we could suggest that we could say that we were concerned about increases in fly tipping and graffiti and tyres, and of the extra money that's available from Welsh Government, that we invest in Pride in Newport, who are the guys that go around tidying things up and one thing and another, to clean up any potential hotspots.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to come up with a solution. I just want to bring the problem to a head.
And that's why I do look for solutions. But yeah, okay, I take that. Charles, Mick Dad, and then Charles. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's a bad move myself. What's happening now during the COVID, I think, could give us some idea, because people are finding it difficult to go to the tip, you know, or the recycling centre with their rubbish, because they've got to make appointments and so on, and there is a lead time before they get an appointment and so on. So then the rubbish end up, you know, on the public highway, mattresses, fridges, all that sort of thing. And then we end up having to pick that up. You know, the council has to pick that up. So introducing charges for people to actually take material to the tip, it's not a good idea in my view. You know, we're trying to encourage recycling, aren't we? So is that a good idea? Is that?
And I know it wasn't your fault, Mick Dad. I only wish that you were in the meeting. I accept fully it wasn't your fault. We did try to question around there, and I brought up about tyres. You know, the fact that we seem to have tyres everywhere. But I suppose if we are going to amplify that point, we need to agree a form of words, or just leave it as the discussion we're having, Gareth, in the same way as we dealt with Mill Parade. You know, that members express concerns, or would that be acceptable to everyone?
So just to be clear, Chair, I mean these charges are just for tyres, plasterboard, and rubble.
Yes, yeah, that's why I mentioned
household waste. So this is just for those items at the waste disposal side. The other issue in terms of investment, if you look at the investment proposals in this area, there's provision for additional waste enforcement officers, which would deal with issues such as fly tipping. So if there was a consequential increase in fly tipping on the investment side, there is provision for additional enforcement officers. So that's already catered for.
Okay, are we happy with that then? Just leave it as it is?
Chair, I'd be happy with that, but I'd link it with further investment in covert. I nearly said COVID. Covert CCTV, because I think that's a big thing that scares people off. So I'd be all for more officers and more CCTV in these quiet places, which are notorious dumping spots for all forms of refuse.
Okay, good. There we are. And Pride in Newport. Can I throw that one in as well?
Yeah, chuck them in as well.
Okay. No, I think those guys do a great job, and they're there in a matter of time. As soon as we report something, and it kind of cleans. It does. In combination, as Gareth, as you suggested, Charles, with CCTV, it's a joined up approach, isn't it?
Yeah. Can I just say something about that? That I mean, there are all sorts of different groups that do clear ups. Actually, I mean, not just them.
I know. I was.
Be careful about sort of.
Sorry, no. The reason why I referenced Pride in Newport.
This is.
Sorry, I wasn't saying Pride in Pill, Mark. I think that's where you're.
No.
Pride in Newport, the council service. So the council department.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, sorry.
Pride in Newport.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I was. So that's as I understand it. It's
I had my wires crossed.
Yeah. And I think that's a good idea. That is, quite honestly, give them a bit more money to pick some of the flight tipped stuff and all that.
Yeah. So it was particularly the council service, Mark, not.
Pride in Newport.
Not a volunteer group.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I
keep me on my toes, but there you are. Okay, well that's good. Well, we made some progress there, haven't we? Right, are we done with any recommendations now? Then, yeah, is that okay? Thank God for that. Right, forward. Sorry, getting tired now. I do apologise. Forward work plan. So as it stands for our next meeting, which is the next month, isn't it? We don't have anything. Okay, now we can choose. It's totally acceptable for us to choose not to have that meeting, and then I think it's June, Neil, that we start again.
That's right, the end of year and reviews then.
So it's totally cool that we don't do anything for the next meeting, but I don't know whether members would want to lose that opportunity. One of there are a couple of things, because this is the last year of this council term, and I'm just sort of thinking we could at the next meeting, there was a 5-year plan. We could look at that and see how we're doing as regards achieving some of the goals there, because we are talking about performance in this scrutiny meeting. We could look at the recovery plan from COVID and scrutinise that to see how we're doing. So there are two things there. Or we could choose not to bring something else forward to the next meeting, or not to have the next meeting. It's totally within members' gift. McDad, I think you raised, I can't recall what it was, but something that you wanted to look at in one of the previous meetings. So there are options. Members can come forward with things. We could look at the 5-year plan. We could look at the recovery plan from COVID. There's just a couple of things that I pulled out of the air in terms of performance as regards our remit, or we can choose to not have the next meeting and start afresh in June. McDad,
I would argue, Chair. I would argue we leave it open, and I think better than cancelling it. I think there are several things we can really sort of put for that. I'm happy to send a couple of suggestions to colleagues here.
I think we would need to decide now, McDad. I'm not being Neil. Can you? Is that the case, or can we leave it kind of open? Gareth, Neil.
Yeah, we can leave it open, Chair. I mean, we can come back to you in terms of agreeing the agenda. I think all we need to agree at this stage is that there's a need for another meeting, and that you will come forward with performance reports or issues that you will consider at that meeting. But you don't need to decide now. We just need to agree the agenda with yourselves and the other committee members before the papers go out. Okay. But what we will need to steer, obviously, is to what you want to review in terms of performance, rather than just have a generic meeting in terms of performance across service areas. We will need to hone in on particular areas that you want to look at to invite the right people.
Yeah, and when will we need to do that by? When will you need to know that by? Are we just delaying needlessly, or I mean, could we agree something now to look at? Or
if you want to agree it now, that's fine. But what I'm saying is it can wait until a couple of weeks before the meeting when we agree the agenda. As long as we've agreed this a few weeks before the meeting, and we're clear what's on the agenda and who needs to be invited, then that's fine.
Okay, so do we want to go with McDad's suggestion that we, over the course of the next week or so, 2 weeks, that we put forward suggested, it has to be monitoring performance, obviously, and it has to be from our service areas. We can put forward some suggestions and agree them over the next couple of weeks, allowing the officers enough time to invite people that we need there. Are we happy? Are we happy with that as a solution?
I would vote for that.
Okay, cool. Right, that's good. Everybody. So please, if there's anything within our remit that you want considered, please put those ideas forward. And there's nothing wrong with cancelling the meeting if we feel as if we don't want to scrutinise anything. Yeah. My personal view is I'd rather have a meeting. Okay.
Yes. Do we send those ideas to Neil?
Yeah, send them to Neil if you want to copy in send them to me and Neil, or if you want to copy everybody, and that's fine too, McDad. I mean, what we don't want is an email discussion about it. So I suppose if we need to, I can contact you to explore further, give you a ring, or arrange a team chat with Neil and Gareth if we need to do that to find out a little bit more about what you want us to cover. I'm sure that would be cool, guys. Neil, Gareth.
Yeah, totally.
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. Sorry, Chair, Councillor Richards would like to say something, but he's on mute. Thank you.
Sorry, I thought.
No, I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm not on mute now. I got kicked out for some reason. I know you all don't like me.
No,
but, right. No, the one point I think is vitally important is a recovery plan from COVID. I mean, we're in a hell of a state at the minute. We're not getting any good leadership from central government, in my opinion. There's all sorts of unknown factors. And no, people are suffering, and there's got to be an end to it. And we need to be ready for that end, don't we? We need to be on top of it.
I mentioned that one, John. I think it is really important, and it's something within our remit that we could.
That's meeting just for that, Chair, because it's not going to go away, is it?
I would like to do that, but McDad suggested that we have a think about this, so that could be the first one that we throw open as a topic. So scrutinising the recovery plan as it was presented. Now we're doing against the actions there. I think that would be a good one.
Yeah. I think what John is suggesting is probably more suited for the overview scrutiny. If you're talking about a recovery plan from COVID, I thought we're looking at sort of
for our remit. Gareth, would it be within our remit to look at the areas relevant to this scrutiny from the recovery plan?
Yes, Chair, because they should have been picked up in the service plans. As we
so
said before, the recovery aims and objectives that Cabinet have approved should now be sort of built into the service area plans. So what you could have done as part of your last review of the service plans is pick up anything there of concern in terms of service areas meeting those objectives and bring those forward. So I think picking up on Councillor Richards' point, what we would need to do is rather than have an open debate on the recovery plan per se, but to try and identify within the service areas that come under the remit of this committee, whether there are specific recovery aims and objectives that you need to look at in terms of performance. But that would be fine, as long as we can identify the specific issues that you want to consider and invite the right heads of service to address those concerns, then that's fine.
That's going to be a body of work in preparation. So I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to suggest that that's what we do. So for the next meeting, Gareth has again articulated it far better than I. We look at the COVID recovery plan relevant to our committee. Officers will go off and extract the relevant as best they can elements that fall into our remit, and that's what we do for our next scrutiny meeting. Do I get agreement on that? Can I get an agreement on that?
Yeah, you got my vote.
Okay, thank you, and I think it allows the officers more time also to work on that, and I think, you know, we're doing a good thing there as well, aren't we? I think that's about it then.
Okay.
Yeah, are we done? Neil, just double check me now. Are we done?
Yeah.
That's everything done now, Chair.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Right, I wasn't sure how long were we?
I made that 4 days, 34 hours.
Well, thank you, everybody. It was it's not easy. Apologies if I've got anything wrong, and genuinely it was great working with you on this. I'm going to stay online just to have a chat and say thanks to Neil, Gareth and Anne. So thank you all. Have a good evening.
Before we go, so that's the 1st of March. Is it the same time, please?
Yes.
Okay, lovely.
So, Chair, you don't want any